We have 101 brawlers in the game, and I'm going to give you one tip for all 101 brawlers. That's 101 tips. Oh my gosh. Now, some of these tips are simple tips that can be applied to anybody playing the brawler. A lot of them are actually pretty good skilled tips, and I'd be shocked if anybody knew all 101 of them. Even if you don't have the brawler, a lot of this can be applied to a lot of brawlers. So pay attention. We're going to start with 8-bit and go alphabetically and end with Ziggy. First up, we got 8-bit. You don't need the entire radius of his super to get a lot of value out of it. So place the turret far out of enemy range and just use the top half of it, so that means the turret will be safe, because obviously it's not going to be useful if it's dead. Next is Ali. Ali is very map dependent and she needs a lot of bushes. So try not to feed brawlers that destroy bushes with their super, and instead target other brawlers that will not be a problem with. Next is Amber. You don't always need to instantly light Amber's super on fire. Sometimes leaving the oil on the ground will actually discourage enemies from traveling over that area, and that can be especially beneficial if you have either of Amber's star powers, and gives Amber a lot of area control. Angelo. Hitting a fully charged arrow every single time is ideal with Angelo, but sometimes a more practical strategy is to fire a bunch of small arrows just to chip away at enemy health and prevent them from healing, especially when it comes to using his super. Next is Ash. Make sure you try to throw your super on top of enemies as much as possible, especially enemies that can pierce through targets, because otherwise they'll just get rid of all of them and with one single blow. Next is Barley. Barley is all about area control. So a lot of the time, you actually need to use his attacks to secure certain areas on the map, instead of always trying to aim at directly on top of enemies or where they're moving and stuff like that. You just want to prevent them from going to specific locations. Using Barley for choke points is especially useful. We've got more to cover, but I want to give a huge thank you to Dev Sisters for sponsoring this video. Dev Sisters are the creators of Cookie Run Oven Smash, a brand new casual action PvP game set in the Cookie Run universe. Use that link in the description below to download it now for free and be one of the first to play it, because it's only been out for a couple of weeks. I've actually been having a lot of fun with it, and I like that every character has like a dash. Not every character, but most of them do. It's really fun. You get to play as different types of cookies and go head to head with other players, all competing to win the Oven Crown Cup. Every cookie has their own unique stats and abilities, and my personal favorite is Dark Choco Cookie. He's so great. He's not overly complicated, and yet he can dish out some crazy AoE damage after easily dashing into enemies. His ult requires some decent aim, but it's so satisfying when you land it. Cookie Run Oven Smash has over 5 game modes. There's a bunch of 3v3 game modes, as well as a 10-man free-for-all game mode. And if you can't choose which is your favorite, you can just play the random game mode, which will just put you in whichever one it chooses for you, I guess. It's actually kind of fun. I like that. So if you're looking for a quick, action-packed mobile game filled with cookies, Cookie Run Oven Smash is definitely worth checking out. Just click that link below. And once again, a huge thank you to Dev Sisters for sponsoring this video. Next, we have B. B's super is best used on tanks. And if you can slow a tank, you can usually just auto aim on them until they die, or you recharge another super and then continually fire on them until they die, because they can't hit you if you are outside of their range. Next, we have Belle. For Belle, you want to always try and hit stationary targets that are near enemies instead of trying to hit the enemy. So for example, like a heist safe, or even like a robot that's in not Siege, Brawl Arena or something like that. Enemies are either automatically going to take damage for the bounce shot, or they're going to try and move outside of its range, which is going to make them an easier target for you. Next is Barry. Barry is way better at healing teammates than he is at dealing damage. Even his super should usually just be used for healing teammates instead of hitting enemies. So remember, he's a healer. Damage is good and can be fun though. Next, we got a tip for BB. Something you should try to learn with BB is to auto aim with BB's super after using her home run bat to knock an enemy back, because the enemy will not be able to dodge the bubble if you time it right, and you also might be able to hit the enemy twice, depending on how you hit it. That's a very high skill, but if you can learn it, oh man, it's so strong. Next is Bo. After you lay some mines down, you want to try and position yourself to where you can push the enemies into those mines with your main attack, especially if they saw where you placed them. What you don't want to do is just place them and then give them free reign to try and trip them without also dodging attacks from yourself. Oh my gosh, I promise I can speak English. Next is Bonnie. Bonnie obviously has a lot of burst damage using her super, but you want to switch back to her cannon form as soon as possible so you can start charging up another super. This is true even for enemies that you try and jump on. You want to land on them, throw out an attack, quickly get into your super, and finish them off with your cannon to recharge your super. Next is a tip for Brock. A single attack from Brock is actually very easy to dodge. So instead, what you want to do is you want to fire 2 shots one after another in kind of like a small V shape, right? So you fire one, they dodge that shot, and then you fire another one exactly to the side of it so that they can't dodge the second shot. Next, we got Bull. Breaking through walls with Bull is a good way to not take a lot of damage while using his super. However, you want to be careful not to break too many walls too soon, or it's going to be very difficult for him to continue charging his super late game, because because walls are Bull's friend. I'm giving you better tips than I am English lessons. Next is Buster. Enemies probably will not shoot at you while you're using your super, so try and activate the super right when enemies fire an attack so that you're able to reflect at least a couple of projectiles. Even then, that's not always the most important thing, reflecting damage. You can also just use his super just to push people back, and that's also very effective. Next, we got Buzz. For Buzz, you want to aim your super at enemies that are close to walls as often as you can. That way, if you miss the enemy, you're still gonna latch onto the wall behind them, and the super won't be a total waste. Next, we got Byron. Now, unlike Barry, Byron is actually a very good offensive brawler for also being a healer. Unless your team comp is specifically built around healing, you want to only heal teammates when absolutely necessary. Otherwise, your teammates get really cocky and think they're invincible and they will just die. Speaking from experience playing with bad randoms. But most of the time, you actually do want to use his shots and his super to damage enemies. But don't forget your teammates, because being able to heal them can really offer some really clutch moments. Next, we have Carl. Many brawlers in the game have stuns and knockbacks that easily interrupt Carl's super. So if you're facing these brawlers, sometimes it's just fine to use Carl's super to just quickly get away from enemies, or to even just after you respawn, just get back into the fight quickly, or even to just dodge attacks. You don't always need his super to deal damage to enemies, and oftentimes using it will be better than waiting for like the perfect moment. Next is a tip for Charlie. If you're struggling to hit an enemy, at least try to hit nearby walls with her misses so that you can use her attack faster, if that makes sense. She doesn't have a misses, she just misses sometimes, and you want to miss on the walls. Next is a tip for Chester. Chester deals the most burst damage with 3 ammo if he fires his 2-shot, 3-shot, and 4-shot. So make sure you are on 2-shot or 2 bells when you're sneaking around in grass. It could be the difference between life and death. Next, we got Chuck. It can be a big struggle to place the furthest post down on the enemy's side, so use the first couple of posts to quickly travel roughly halfway up the map, and then use his rerouting gadget to instantly charge his super and throw the post to the furthest spot if you need it. If you don't have his rerouting post, prioritize getting the posts down that are easy to place, and then get that final post in when it's a good opportunity for you to, instead of just not using his super ever until you finally get him down, because you don't want to waste time playing Chuck. Not that Chuck's not worth playing. He's worth playing. You guys get what I'm saying. Clancy's next. For Clancy, you want to play really aggressively until you are able to level up to level 3. You're probably going to die a couple of times, but that's actually way better than not leveling up at all during the entire match. Next is Colette. Colette's best game mode is Heist because of how much damage her super actually deals to the safe. You actually hardly ever need to use her main attack on the safe, and you almost always want to use her super on the safe. Additionally, with Colette, you can learn a really good tempo where you attack with 3 attacks and then either use a gadget attack or a super to finish off an enemy. Next is Colt, and using Colt's super to kill enemies is obviously always good. But depending on the matchup, it might actually be more useful for you to use his super to just break walls. This is especially good if you're playing against a lot of close range brawlers, and this can be much more valuable in the long run than just getting 1 kill. Just keep in mind you want to pay attention to your teammates as well. You don't want to remove walls if your teammates' brawlers rely on the walls to be successful. If that's the case, break enemy walls, keep your walls alive. A lot of the times, not always, it just depends. Next is Cordelius. Instead of supering on an enemy as soon as you charge his super, you want to super on an enemy as soon as their teammate dies so that you can create a temporary 2v1 for your teammates. His super is also really good for using on an enemy who activates a very powerful hypercharge, or especially if they've got their buffied hypercharge. Oh my gosh. Next, we got Crow. Crow's shield gadget has become way better than it used to be. And the way to use it right now is to activate it when a poison enemy is about to lose their poison. So you can basically double the time that they're poisoned. This alone is often better than the shield itself, which is kind of interesting. Next is Daryl. You always want to try and use both of Daryl's rolls when using his super. Even if it feels like the second roll will be wasted, if you die with one roll charge, it's even worse than wasting a roll because you respawn with his super completely empty, and he can't recharge his second roll when he has only one roll. So use it or lose it. That's the slogan for Daryl. Next, we got Doug. The most common use for Doug's hypercharge is attaching his super to a teammate that can dive in on enemies. So think like Bonnie or Gray, right? And then use his attacks to deal damage to enemies that are near his teammates after they dive in. Next, we got Draco. When using Draco's super, you can pretty much just run in a straight line towards enemies because the tank trait plus the damage reduction that he gets almost gives Draco his super back if he gets killed. He's a weird brawler where dying is not that big of a deal, especially unless you don't use it to recharge your super. Recharging his super is what makes Draco incredibly strong, even if you die. Next, we got Dynamite. Now, each Dynamite from Dynamite's main attack actually has its own individual hitbox. So if you throw it close to Dynamite, then those hitboxes are going to be really close to each other. And if you throw it out further, then the actual radius of his attack will be longer and less likely to hit 2 Dynamite sticks on an enemy, but more likely to just hit overall. Next is Edgar. Many brawlers have supers and gadgets that push Edgar away from them or allow them to escape his range. So you want to do your absolute best to track which enemies use these abilities so that you can use them, or so you can jump on them when they have those abilities down and cannot activate them against Edgar. It's a waiting game with Edgar. It's a patience game with Edgar. It's the timing game, and you just got to be careful. Sometimes that means baiting enemies to use their gadgets when it's not going to completely wreck your strategy, right? Next, we have El Primo. Whenever you auto-aim with El Primo, you want to auto-aim over the super button so that you instantly use his super right on top of an enemy as soon as he charges it. In some cases, this will allow you to recycle your super and just completely obliterate people. It can be really fun when it works out. Next, we got Ems, also known as the easiest brawler in the world to play. You want to use Ems' main attack right before you use her Friend Zoner gadget so that the enemy is pushed into the attack and takes even more damage. Ha, look at that. Even Ems has a tip. Next is a tip for Eve. Now, this is going to sound a little bit weird because Eve's hatchlings actually lose health the further that they have to travel. So you might think, oh, you want to try and place it up far enough forward so that so that they actually have enough health to reach the enemies. That's actually not the case, because if the spawner gets destroyed, then they never hatch and no enemies get out. So you actually want to prioritize keeping her super safe instead of placing them close to enemies. It's definitely a little bit of a balance game. You want the best of everything, but don't make a mistake of throwing her spawner up ahead and then it just getting killed before it can hatch. Next is a tip for Fang. If you have the Fresh Kicks star power, you want to always try and get kills with Fang's super. It might seem unnecessary when an enemy is within range of Fang's heavy main attack, but killing them with his super actually saves you some ammo if you have that Fresh Kicks star power equipped, and lets you recycle his super if you need to. Very strong ability if you play it right. Next, we got Finks. For Finks, you want to try and place his super near yourself and your teammates instead of near enemies. I see this happen all the time with people. And what ends up happening is if you place it too far away, the enemies are just gonna be able to play around it way easier and you get way less value out of it. Next is Frank. You wanna try and get good at taking just the right amount of damage to keep Frank's health low without also letting him die. If you do so, you're gonna successfully land way more attacks, and it's risky. And it takes some skill and some practice, but if you get better at it, man, you can become a real monster with Frank. Next is Gale. You don't always want to wait for a close range brawler to get close up in order for his super to be good. It's also good for just finishing off enemies at low health, or even more commonly, just preventing enemies from healing for a few more seconds and also finding them in the grass. Next, we got Jean. Auto-aiming Jean's super is surprisingly effective. As long as you're not trying to pull a brawler from max range or an extremely fast brawler, usually auto-aiming is better to go than manually aiming a super. Next, we got Gigi. For Gigi, you want to stay hidden in bushes where long-range brawlers constantly have to fire shots in order to check for enemies. Even if they know that you are somewhere in the bush, they still have to check, which is going to charge your super and waste their ammo, which can create some opportunities for your teammates. Next, we have Glowy. Most of the time, you want to stay tethered to one of your teammates, even if they are fully healed. However, tethering to a teammate while they're hiding in grass will actually make them visible and can hurt them. So you want to pay attention to what they're trying to do before starting to heal them. Next is Gray. Gray's super can be used for assassinating enemies, but sometimes it's just better to place the portals in high traffic areas if Gray has close range brawlers on his team. It's going to help them much more in the long run if the portals can teleport them close to enemies consistently, rather than just getting one good single teleport in. Next, we got Griff. Griff's super actually has a lot of range, but it actually deals the most damage at a point blank range. So wait for close range brawlers to come close and use it kind of like a Shelly super. Next is Grom. Make sure with Grom that you have some ammo when you throw Grom's super, because if you hit an enemy with it, it's actually really easy to knock them into a regular attack for some extra damage. Additionally, kind of like how Brock, you want to use 2 attacks at a time, you also want to use 2 attacks with Grom at a time, because people are going to be able to dodge the first attack, and guaranteeing they get hit by the second one is really useful. Next is Gus. Gus's super is obviously great for saving teammates who are in trouble, but it can also be used offensively. If none of your teammates are in danger, throw the shield on an assassin that's ready to dive in and get a kill, and it's going to make them that much stronger. Next, we have a tip for Hank. While you're charging Hank's bubble, you want to try and hold it away from enemies that you're trying to hit so that they actually misjudge how far the bubble can actually reach. There's this weird perspective in the game where you can see further long ways than you can see sideways. So sometimes keeping it off to the side and then popping out forward is actually a really good idea, because it's a weird visual bug. It doesn't always work. People get better at facing off against this, but it's an interesting tip. Next is Jackie. For Jackie, you want to try and wait to use Jackie's hypercharge for when you also have her speed gadget available as well. Using them together makes Jackie extra fast, and it's so much better than making her sort of fast for a longer period of time. Next, we got Jae Young. Increased movement speed is usually more valuable than healing, so you want to try and stay in that mode often. This is actually one that I took a while to realize, especially when I learned that he does more damage with his healing attack. You do want to heal up your team when you need to, but quickly switch back to speed, because dodging is way better than needing the heals. Next is Janet, and you want to try and avoid using Janet's super until you have some ammo saved up. And this is because her super, or her ammo actually does not reload while she's in the air. If you do this right, you can drop on some enemies and then just unload a quick burst of damage if you have full ammo. Next, we got Jessie. If you're facing a close range brawler, you want to place her turret far away from enemies in an open space. If you're facing long range brawlers, you actually want to place a turret near enemies but behind a wall, so it's difficult for them to get to it, and then try and attack enemies when they try and get into position to try and hit the turret. This doesn't always work. There's a reason why Jessie's in the F tier right now, but it's a good tip from somebody who actually plays a lot of Jessie. Next, we have Juju. For Juju, you want to use her super on close range brawlers as much as possible. You want to place it close enough to where it will shoot at them, but far enough away that they're going to have to eat a few shots if they want to get close to it. Next is Kaze. If you can successfully sneak up on an enemy in her ninja mode and hit them with all 3 ammo, this is going to charge your super, and then you can use it to dash through the enemies back to a safe location. Next, we got Kenji. When you charge Kenji's super, you want to use it on a different enemy than the one you are currently attacking. They're usually not expecting that, and that means that you can get some heals for when you're able to return. Next is Kit. For Kit, you want to avoid stunning enemies unless your teammates are in a position to hit that enemy while stunned. If you stun them in the wrong spot, you might end up being the one that gets killed, because you can get 2v1. You want to try and single people out and, 2v1 them when possible. Next is Larry and Laurie. When you're playing Larry, you want to throw Laurie close enough to an enemy that they are already in his range, and then you want to try and protect him. If you just randomly drop him somewhere because you charge up your super, he's likely to just wander across the enemy side of the map and die before he actually does anything. Next is Leon. If an enemy sees that your super is charged, they're going to expect you to use it, and they'll probably find you if you're trying to use it right away. So instead, try just sitting in a bush with your super charge to make them think that you're using it and wasting their ammo and stuff like that, and then you use it after they've kind of let their guard down and started checking other bushes and whatnot. Next is Lily. For Lily, you want to use Lily's Vanish gadget to travel from one section of grass to another. This is going to give you better positioning and might actually make you totally undetected, but you also might be able to charge your super without the enemy knowing as well. Another tip for Lily: don't use her super unless she also has her Vanish gadget. And in that situation, you want to use your super to get to enemies, try and take them out, and then use her Vanish gadget to get away safely. Next is Lola. If you're trying to maintain map control, place her clone slightly behind you, since Lola can actually heal on her own, and your clone can't. If you're trying to regain map control, place her clone slightly in front of you to tank some of those shots for you. Next is Lu. For Lu, before you throw your super on an enemy, pay close attention to the direction they are moving. Depending on the direction, they can easily just slide out of the super. So sometimes you need to wait for them to move in a direction that runs them into a wall, and that will keep them trapped for a longer period of time. Next, we have Lumi. For Lumi, you don't want to be afraid to just leave Lumi's spikes on the map for long periods of time if they are controlling important parts of the map. This is kind of similar to Amber, right? You don't have to constantly be pushing and pulling Lumi's attack for it to provide great map control. They just need to be in the right places. Next is Maisie. Using Maisie's disengage gadget right after activating her super is the bread and butter to playing Maisie well. You're actually going to hit enemies way more frequently, and getting good at this is, oh man, it's just like so good. Super, gadget, boom. They get knocked back. They're slowed because of the star power. You hit them a couple more times. Easy kills. Next, we have Mandy. This is an interesting one. You want to make sure that whoever you're aiming your super at will actually die if they get hit by it. You're probably going to be hitting an enemy that's really far away and can just easily recover their health at a safe distance if they do get hit by the super. So use it for kills, not just because you can hit somebody. Next is Max. This one seems obvious, but I feel like it needs to be said. Use your super to speed up your teammates. Max's super will almost always benefit her teammates more than herself because her teammates frequently deal more damage. Next is Meeple. I often see people playing Meeple just panic and throw their super directly on top of a single wall that they want to shoot through. The super is just as effective if only a small portion of the super is touching a wall. So you always want to try and capture as many walls as possible with each super. The super being directly on top of like the wall that you want to use does nothing for you. Next is Meg. For Meg, you want to play super aggressive if your mecha gets destroyed. If you can recharge her super and quickly get back into it, that's great. But don't spend too much time trying to recharge her super. Sometimes it really is just better to die and then get back into the mecha rather than spending half the game trying to charge your super on foot, because she is awful when she's outside of her mecha. Next is Melody. Very similar tip to Daryl, right? Except that it's even more important for Melody because her super doesn't charge automatically. The tip is that if you use one dash, you better be ready to use the next two quickly afterwards so that you can start charging up her other super and just get value out of it. Next is Miko. For Miko, you want to avoid using all of your ammo when dealing damage to enemies unless you know that you're going to be able to kill them. You always want to use 1 or 2 ammo just in case you need to escape, or like you could have a super available or something like that. But there's no shame in Miko jumping in on somebody, dealing damage once, and then jumping right back out and being safe. Dealing damage is better than not dealing damage, and not dying is more important than maybe getting a kill, right? Next is Mina. Instead of unloading all 3 of Mina's ammo and then using her super to finish a kill, you want to practice using her first 2 ammo, firing a super, and then using the 3rd ammo. It makes the 3rd shot easier to land and gets you closer to another super as well. Next is Mo. This tip is very similar to Bonnie. You can use his drill to take out the enemy that you super, but as soon as you can, you want to get out of the drill so that you can start charging up the super again. Just don't wait for the drill to stop on its own if there are opportunities for you to hit other enemies and start charging up your super. Next is Mortis. This is very similar to Miko's tip. You're not always going to get the best matchups with Mortis, so if you're facing close range brawlers, dash through them and then out of their range until you are able to charge up a super, right? You want to use your ammo smartly. Smartly is not a word, but I am being smartly here. Next is Mr. P. For Mr. P, you obviously want to place Mr. P's super in a very safe place far enough away from enemies, but you should also put it on the side of the map where the enemy who struggles the most against the porters is playing. For example, a Piper. If Piper's on the right side, place his porters on the right side so that Piper has to face off of it. Don't put it always in the middle because it's not always best in the middle. Usually a side is going to be better. A lot of the times. Next, we have Nausea. Nausea is brand new, and just one simple tip for her if you didn't know already, you can aim Nausea's super out of her main attack. And if you do this, it will release automatically if you just continue to aim it. Doing this makes sure that you get the most range possible and can also be very surprising. You just throw out an attack, aim your super, and then the snakes jump out. Next is Nani. Very similar to Mandy. You want to wait to use Nani's super until you or your teammates have dealt enough damage for the super to one-shot the enemy. If you cannot kill an enemy with a super, it's really easy for the enemy to just recover the health at a safe distance, and the super basically provides no value then. Next is Nita. For Nita's tip, you want to follow your bear. It's actually really easy to deal with Nita's bear all by itself. But if Nita is moving along with it, it's significantly harder to deal with for a lot of brawlers because you have to deal with Nita and you have to deal with the Baron. Who do you attack? Do you attack Nita? The bear can push them in. It's a lot of different situations. Next is Ollie. For Ollie, you don't want to use Ollie's super unless you know you'll be able to drag enemies that you taunt within range of your teammates. Just because you're able to land a super on an enemy doesn't necessarily mean it's a good idea to, especially because Ollie's super drains some of his ammo. Next is Otis. Otis's super should almost always be used for assassination prevention. Muting an enemy at max distance can be satisfying, but it usually doesn't do very much because the enemy can just fall back and heal very easily. Next is Pam. Slightly moving side to side while firing Pam's attack is going to stagger the paths of her projectiles, which makes her much harder to avoid and will likely deal more damage. Another tip, Pam's attack best damage is actually similar to Colt's attack. So you want to kind of like strafe with teammates as well. So that's kind of interesting and fun. Next is Pearl. Pearl should mostly be played like a long-ranged assassin. Let her heat bar be filled up all the way and then unload all of her ammo at once and then repeat. Next, we have Penny. And this tip makes sense for Penny, but I just gotta say it. You want to guard your cannon with your life. Penny's cannon can provide way more value than she herself can. You want to place your turret in a safe place and prioritize keeping it alive. You want to do everything to keep it alive. And if you do so, chances are you're going to get some really good value out of it just from enemies trying to get to the turret while taking damage from you or putting themselves in awkward positions and situations. Next is Pierce. Instead of fully reloading your ammo with bullet casings, you want to fire the last shot in his clip, then pick up a bullet casing, fire it, pick up another, and so on and so forth. You actually deal way more damage with this way, and with his slowing star power, it's ridiculously OP. It really is. Next, we have Piper. For Piper, this makes sense for Piper. The more open the map is, the better for Piper it's going to be. That makes sense. But still, some people just don't prioritize using her super to break walls. For some reason, they like use it to try and save her from assassins, which is useful, but you do want to use it to try and get rid of walls so that she has more area to try and use her advantages against enemies. Next is Poco. Poco doesn't deal very much damage by himself, so you want to find yourself a teammate that can deal the most damage and try and stay near them pretty much as much as possible. Not only is this obviously going to support them with heals, but also you're going to be able to, they're going to protect you from stronger close range brawlers, which Poco is very weak against. Next, we have RT. For RT, you want to try and not use RT's super unless you are confident you can recharge it while in his split form. If you use it too early, you're going to be stuck in a very close range form and will probably have to die in order to change back. And that's not good because that charges enemy super. Next, we have Rico. Even though Rico's whole thing is bouncing shots off of walls, you're probably trying to ricochet his shots too much. Rico still has a lot of range and damage even without bouncing his walls, and bouncing his shots off of walls usually actually lowers your accuracy. You want to use walls only when you absolutely have to in order to hit enemies. Next is Rosa. For Rosa, you don't want to be afraid of using her super just to get to a better spot on the map where you can then apply more pressure, or even to just tank a bunch of shots for your teammates. If you only wait for an opportunity to get a kill with an enemy with her super, then you're probably going to waste a lot of time and give your enemies very valuable area control. Next is Ruffs. For Ruffs, you want to save your hypercharged supers for yourself. If you wait until Ruffs' hypercharge runs out, you can go and pick up a hypercharged super and quickly get another hypercharged super for a teammate. Next, we have Sam. For Sam, you really want to avoid auto-aiming his super as much as possible. All it takes is one accidental throw to the wrong spot, and he's going to be pretty much useless until he gets killed and respawns. Next, we got Sandy. You want to try connecting groups of bushes together with Sandy's super. The more bushes it touches, the more you're essentially extending the range of Sandy's super and can also really give your team valuable bush control. Next is Shade. If you activate Shade's long arms gadget at just the right time after firing an attack, that attack and the next one will have extra range. Crazy and very strong. Next, we got Shelly. When you're playing Shelly in Brawl Ball, you want to shoot the ball towards the goal, even if there are walls there, and then use her super to break all the walls and push enemies away from the ball for a very easy goal. Next is Sirius. If your team is in control of the map, you want to spawn some shadows and assign them to a spot away from the enemy. Once you collect a few more shadows, or if the enemy team starts to regain control, then send all of the shadows, including the ones that you're holding, after them to stop them in their tracks. Just be very careful if you're doing this not to die, because now if you die with Sirius, then you also lose your shadows that are currently spawned. Next, we got Spike. Ever since Spike has been able to throw his life plant gadget, it has become a very useful tool for not only blocking shots, but also revealing enemies hidden in the bush, since you can see bushes that are surrounding it. It's a really great reveal totem. Next we got Sprout. If an assassin gets too close to Sprout, throw Sprout's super right next to it and the wall will separate you from your enemy. This doesn't always work. It can be difficult sometimes, but when it does work, it'll save your life. Next, we got Squeak. Throwing 2 attacks to the left and to the right of an enemy makes them really hard to avoid. So you don't always need to be trying to stick bombs directly onto enemies in order to deal damage to them. This is similar to Brock's tip, right? A little bit of a V and hit enemies to the left and to the right makes it really hard to avoid unless they just fall back. Next, we got Stu. If you fire an attack that you think is going to hit an enemy, use Stu's super right before the attack lands so that you can instantly recharge your super. And this can be used to either get closer to enemies or even further away. Next is Surge. The difference between level 2 and level 3 is very important. So be very careful not to die on level 3 or 4 unless you have a super that is charged and you can use it to upgrade to level 3 right when you respawn. Obviously, this requires you to have his star power that automatically keeps his first level, but you should always be using that star power unless you're playing solo showdown. Next is Terra. For Terra, it's really nice to get 2 or 3 enemies pulled into her super, but it's usually smartest to use Terra's super to pull just 1 brawler. If you pull them too close to you and unload all of your ammo to kill them, you'll probably just recharge another super or at least get very close to it. And the unfortunate thing is if you pull too many enemies close to it, chances are you won't kill all of them, and they may end up actually killing you after you've unloaded all of your shots. Next, we have Tick. You might be tempted to use Tick's super right when you charge it, but he's very vulnerable at close range, so sometimes it's better to just hang on to it until a close range brawler gets close. Next, we have Trunk. If you have full ammo and no enemies are nearby, just unload and reload ammo 1 by 1 to get some ants on the map. The more the merrier for Trunk, and it just makes Trunk a little bit better overall. Next, we have Willow. Willow's best mode is probably Brawl Ball, because if she can hit an enemy with her super that's anywhere close to an enemy ball, she often has time to pick up the ball and walk it into the goal without enemy teammates being able to do anything about it. And finally, we have Ziggy. Ziggy's super has very far range, but it moves incredibly slow. So you want to aim it at high traffic areas, but use it on enemies that are nearby so they don't have time to run away from it. That is 101 tips for 101 brawlers. If you have additional tips, leave them in the comment section below and let me know which tip you learned from in this video. Also, make sure you subscribe for more content and use code Kairos in the Brawl Stars shop or store.supercell.com. Kairos, code Kairos in the Brawl Stars shop. Oh yeah.